are back, and we're kind of making a serious turn here because we're talking about ADHD. It is diagnosed in almost 11% of school-age children. Joining us to talk a lot about this disorder, what parents can do when they say, no, I don't want to put my kids on medication, is licensed psychologist and co-host of Fatal Vows on Investigation Discovery, Dr. Brian Russell is here.
Welcome.
Let's get into the definition of what this really is.
ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. ADD is attention deficit disorder. Both involve, allegedly, a disability of the brain to focus attention. ADHD also includes a hyperactivity component whereby the individual has a hard time controlling their movements and energy level.
You said allegedly.
Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah, I heard that too. What does that mean, allegedly?
Yeah.
This diagnosis has reached epidemic proportions. Supposedly, over 10% of American children between ages 4 and 17 now carry this diagnosis. Now, I got interested in this as a psychology grad student. I was tutoring kids on the side, and I would see these kids week after week, many of whom had the diagnosis. But because I was studying psychology and I knew the diagnostic criteria, and I got to know these kids over time, I quickly realized that the vast majority of them with the diagnosis really did not meet the criteria for it. And that's frightening because it has some pretty serious physiological and psychological side effects.
What is the criteria for it, though? What are the symptoms?
The most important one is that the person is supposed to have pervasive difficulty focusing attention. And this is critical because it means that the person would have difficulty then focusing attention across the board, not just at school, not just at work, but at the movies, playing video games. And if your child can watch a movie, can play a video game for hours at a time and focus on that and know what's going on, then they don't have ADHD in my book.
We have seen an increase, 41% of diagnosed cases.
Over the last decade.
Yeah.
Yes, and proponents of ADHD will tell you that that increase is because we've just gotten so much better at diagnosing the disorder.
Right.
But you can look at other societies where they have great health care, like Sweden, and they haven't seen that kind of an uptick. So it has more to do, I think, with some cultural biases here in the United States. One is that we like the quick fix. One is that we've gotten away some from personal responsibility, which is the thing that built the country to begin with. One is that we've gotten used to sedentary kids. We've had so much media in the home for so many years now, which is great for those of us who work in TV, but we sort of have the expectation now that kids won't be as active as we once did. So now a kid who's as active as once would have been considered normal can look a little hyper. And there's also huge money in this, guys. Huge money behind the medications
From the pharmaceutical standpoint.
Isn't there also the fact that the kids today, everything, for example, in the media, is in 5-second spots. I mean, there is no long form of anything. Everything is, the commercials are boom, boom, boom. You go to the movies, it's, well, you know, you just watch that, and all of a sudden, a teacher comes up in a classroom for 45 minutes, has to lecture. How can a teacher at all compete with the high-tech, quick pictures, images, and doesn't that make a kid not want to pay attention?
Well, it's interesting you say that because when my daughter was in high school, most of the kids would take the pill. Was it Adderall or what?
One of the medications is that.
To help them focus, and that's what they would use them for. So they would be They would be asking other kids, "Let me have your Adderall. Let me have your medication to help them focus."
That's a huge problem. That is one of the cultural side effects that I talk about with ADD and ADHD. The medications for these things are being rampantly diverted on not just college but high school campuses. Sometimes the abuse is for ostensibly academic enhancement, but a lot of times it's recreational. They crush the pills up, they snort them like cocaine, the effect is similar.
But what percentage of this 10% is then on medication? Is that
The majority.
The majority.
The majority of kids who get the diagnosis end up on one medication or another.
So parents are sitting at home listening to this right now, and they're alarmed. They either have that diagnosis for their child or they suspect it. What do they do?
The first thing you should do, first thing you ought to do is pay attention to your child's teachers, as you do. Go to the conferences, listen to the teacher. Don't blame the teacher if the teacher says the behavior needs to be better. Some parents will throw up some bogus excuse like, oh, he's just bored, you're not stimulating him enough, he's just disinterested. That's my favorite bogus excuse for why a kid has a D. D stands for something, but disinterested is not it. So listen to the teacher. work with the teacher. If the teacher says the behavior needs to improve at school, first assume a disciplinary deficit, a structure and discipline deficit at your house before you assume a chemical deficit. Then if you think that the structure and discipline is good and still you're having problems, I recommend parents go to a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, a psychologist, because that person cannot prescribe and will not prescribe medication. Get a full diagnostic workup, and they should talk to you, your child's teachers, your child's pediatrician. They should gather information from a wide variety of sources because they ought to be looking for the deficit to be showing up across the board. And then if they say, yes, your child meets the criteria, ask them what you can do short of medication. What can you try first in the structure and discipline realm?
Okay, I had one of those children the minute we changed her diet and she started eating healthier. It made all the difference in the world. Cut out all the sugar, all the flour, all the crap, excuse me, I'm so sorry to use that word, that they would eat. And it really changed the way, it helped their thought process and helped them feel better when they were in school. The second I did that, and so, because they diagnosed one of my kids with the same, and I went to a psychiatrist and a psychologist, and they said she doesn't really have it, but she had all the symptoms of it. But when I changed her diet, it changed. How important is that?
Getting the junk out of your diet is good for you on multiple levels. Now, certainly there are things like caffeine and sugar that reducing those can help with the hyperactivity component. There are other things like omega-3s that like omega-3s that we think can help with focus. But I think you're probably going to get the greatest improvement in someone's ability to focus from structure and discipline, less so from diet, but do it all. Why not do it all? And when it comes to the structure and discipline, I think that all we have to do is look. We're hours away now from a bunch of our young people showing what structure and discipline can do in Sochi.
Yeah.
And I think that if parents would think more about how to apply that lesson in the home for things other than just sports, I think we could get a lot farther. At least we could get a lot of these kids to the same place where they're getting with medication without the long-term psychological and physiological side effects.
It's a huge topic, but I think we tackled a portion of it here. Thank you so much, Doctor, for being
Thank you.
here.
Thanks for having me.
A special message from Dr. Russell on our Facebook page awaits you. You can check it out there.